Hey guys, my name is Shreyas and welcome to Simple Biology. In this video, we're going to be talking about the endomembrane system, which kind of sounds complicated, but it's really not, and you're going to see that by the end of this video. So what is the endomembrane system? The endomembrane system is a group of organelles, which are classified together because one, they are made up of membranes, hence the term endomembrane, and they all work together in a system. Okay, um, and all these organelles are either connected to each other physically connected, or they can transfer the materials within themselves through vesicles, which we'll be talking about in just a moment. Now, excuse me, the organelles which make up the endomembrane system, there's actually six, and let me write those down for you right here. So there is the nuclear envelope, okay, and then there is the the endoplasmic reticulum, and then there is the Golgi apparatus, then there is the lysosome, sorry, a cell usually has more than one lysosome, and then there is the vacuoles, and then finally we have there's two terms for this, either the plasma membrane or the cell membrane. It's basically just the same thing. Okay, and we're going to be talking extensively on each one of these. So before we do that, let's first talk about what vesicles are. So vesicles are basically packets of a membrane. They're kind of like a bubble. You can just think of it like a bubble, which essentially all it does is it stores and transport. Sorry, the vesicles store and transport proteins and other materials. So you can kind of think of it like if you have a, you can think of the endomembrane system like kind of like a the UPS, the United States Postal Service. You know what they do is they send packages, they send mail to everyone, right? So you can kind of think of a vesicle as like an individual envelope or a box, okay? And they transport proteins and other material, okay? They're significant because they help materials travel throughout a cell in an organized matter. Okay, so imagine that if there weren't vesicles, how would a protein get from one side of the cell to the other? It would be hard to like just get that protein collected and then transport it to another side of the cell. So that's why the cell has vesicles. Okay. And they connect the parts of the endomembrane system together. I kind of mentioned this here when I said that all the parts of an organelle, all the parts of the endomembrane system, all the organelles are connected through vesicles. So that's what vesicles do. They connect the parts of the endomembrane system, which you will kind of notice as I get through this video. So if this doesn't make any sense, that's okay. Now, here in this diagram over here on the right, we have the formation of a vesicle. So how does this work? So right here, we basically have this is just a membrane, and this membrane can be part of any of these six things. It can be a membrane of the nuclear envelope, the ER, the Golgi apparatus, or the plasma membrane. But essentially what happens is you start to see this pinching, okay? So let me show you here. We have the first step here. So like as you see it starts to pinch, then it pinches even more, and then finally it completely pinches off, and then you get the vesicle right here, okay? And what ends up happening is, let's say we have some material here, which is just scattered around the cell like this. So what will happen is that this material will kind of float into this vesicle, and then that material will get pinched off like this, and then it's inside here, and then eventually that material will end up inside the vesicle for it to be transported to something else. Okay. Now let's talk about the first organelle in the endomembrane system, the nuclear membrane. Okay, so if you look in this diagram here, we have actually three parts. We have this is a kind of like a snippet of the cell. We have the nuclear membrane right here. This would be the nuclear membrane. And then we have smooth ER right here, which I'll be talking about in just a moment. So just hold on there. And then we have rough, the smooth ER even here too. And then we have rough ER right here. Okay. So This is the nuclear membrane. The green portion is the smooth ER, and then the blue portion is the rough ER. And the ER we'll be talking about just in a moment. But all you need to know for nuclear membranes is that they hold all the contents of the cell together. Okay, they kind of like, just like how the cell membrane has it kind of holds everything in the cell together, and the nuclear membrane holds everything in all the materials in the nucleus together, and it's also continuous with the endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, in order to explain that, I'm going to have to erase the highlighting here, so just make sure you know all the parts. So let me erase the highlighting. So as you can see here, we have the nuclear membrane right here, and then we have the rough ER, the smooth ER right here. Okay, so if you notice that there is actually nothing which is separating these two, these regions are actually connected right here. These regions are connected. So that's what we mean by saying that the nuclear membrane is continuous with the endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, now, before I talk about the endoplasmic reticulum, I want to emphasize that we actually have a video on the nucleus, which you might want to go check out, where we dive way more into the nuclear membrane and talk more about it, because there's more to the nuclear membrane than what I just mentioned on the slide. So you might want to go check out that video. Okay, I just included it in here because it's part of the endomembrane system. Now, okay, we've talked about the nuclear membrane. Let's go ahead and talk about the endoplasmic reticulum. So the endoplasmic reticulum, what an interesting, funny name. I actually did some research and found out that the endoplasmic reticulum, the name kind of makes sense. It is actually Latin for, excuse me, endoplasmic means within the cell, and reticulum means little net. And that kind of makes sense, because the endoplasmic reticulum, as we just saw here, all of this region right here is going to be, well, let me draw that a little bit better. All this region right here is the endoplasmic reticulum, and it kind of makes sense because it's just, as you can see, it's just like these little nets of membrane which is inside the cell, so hence the name endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, now we already talked about this bullet point right here, how the endoplasmic reticulum is continuous with the nuclear membrane. Now all these little sacs right here, these sacs, that would be like one sac, and then maybe this whole thing right here, this whole mess would be another sac, and then that would be another sac right there. All these sacs actually have a special name. I don't call them sacs. They're called cisternae. Okay, so make sure you know that. Inside the sacs is a special, inside the sacs is something special called the ER lumen. Okay, so this white region right here, if you notice inside a sac, inside the cisternae, sorry, is, I need to stop calling it sacs, is the ER lumen. Okay, and there's actually two types of endoplasmic reticulum. There is smooth endoplasmic reticulum, and then there is rough endoplasmic reticulum. And what the difference is that smooth endoplasmic reticulum have no ribosomes, while rough endoplasmic reticulum does have ribosomes, and these and they function in protein sorting, which the functions of the rough ER we'll just get into a moment. So if you had to look at a diagram here, let me go ahead and just erase all of this. So if you look at a diagram here, the rough ER, if you notice here, have these little dots. So that would be rough ER. Actually, let me go ahead and highlight. That might be easier. So all of this is rough ER over here because they have the ribosomes attached to them, which you can see as these little black brown dots. And then all of this region over here is smooth ER because there are no ribosomes. There's none of those brown dots, brown or black. You know, I think it's brown. I can't even tell. Okay, but it's besides the point. So if you ever get a test question asking you what type of endoplasmic reticulum we're looking at, you'd be able to tell there. Okay, so excuse me, let's first talk about the functions of the smooth ER. The smooth ER is actually helps in the synthesis of lipids. Now, if you have no idea what lipids are, this is a very good time to go back and review biomolecules. The thing about biology is that it kind of builds up. You're going to have to know things from previous units before you learn about more extensive things. So if you don't know what a lipid is, go check out our biomolecules unit. Okay, because there's a lot of things I'm going to be referring to from the biomolecules unit in this video, which you need to know. So, functions of smooth ER: they synthesize lipids. These lipids can be anything from oils to phospholipids to steroids. These are all lipids, and you should know this from the biomolecules unit that all of these are lipids, and these lipids can all do different things. For example, these phospholipids can go and excuse me, can go and help in the formation of a membrane, right? Because membranes are lipid bilayers, and they consist of phospholipids. These steroids can go and make hormones. Like in animal cells, these steroids, which are made from the smooth ER, will go and they'll make all sorts of hormones. Okay, so that's that. Another function of the smooth ER is that they detoxify drugs and poisons. They detoxify drugs and poisons. And the way they do this is that they add, let me write this here, they add hydroxyl groups. They add hydroxyl groups. Okay, now if you don't have any idea what a hydroxyl group is, go check out our functional groups video. Okay, and remember that a hydroxyl group is an OH group, oxygen bonding to hydrogen. So whenever you add these hydroxyl groups, remember we learned in the biomolecules unit that hydroxyl groups make molecules more soluble. So whenever you the smooth ER adds hydroxyl groups to the drugs or the poisons, they will actually end up making the whatever toxin very soluble, and then that toxin will be able to mix with water and then be exported quickly out of the cell. Okay, now this is an interesting side note which you might want to know about. The liver cells have in humans and all animals, actually, the liver cells actually have a great amount of smooth ER. Why? Because the liver actually is a organ which helps in detoxifying also all the waste, all the toxins which come from the body. Okay, for example, whenever you drink and whenever you drink, you get alcohol into your system, and the liver cells are going to actually help detoxify that alcohol so it doesn't harm things in your body. So what happens is that sometimes when you drink too much alcohol, the body is automatically going to think that, hey, there's a lot of toxins which are entering the body, and a lot of smooth ER is going to be formed. You're going to get an increase in the amount of smooth ER within the liver cells, which is great. You might be thinking, okay, now I can drink excessive amounts of alcohol and I won't die. However, what will happen is now that the smooth ER, there's so much smooth ER in your liver, what will end up happening is that whenever you have an infection or something like that, and you take an antibiotic is something that you take in order to help. It's like medicines. Whenever you get a fever, you take an antibiotic, which helps kill the bacteria which is in your body. What will end up happening is since there's such an excess amount of smooth ER, the smooth ER is going to go ahead and do this thing where it adds hydroxyl groups to the antibiotic, so the antibiotic can't even do its job and go kill the bacteria which is in your body. So make sure don't drink that much. Drinking alcohol is bad for reasons like this. Okay. So anyways, so that's the second function of the smooth ER. Another function of the smooth ER is that it stores calcium ions. Remember this is another thing. If you don't know what a calcium ion is, it's Ca2+. You might want to go watch our introductory to chemistry video. Okay, because introduction to chemistry unit. that whole unit, because we talk about what ions are. Okay, so anyways, what happens is that in muscle cells, what will end up happening is that there's going to be calcium ions, which are kind of just like, whoops, let me draw this better. You have calcium ions, which are kind of just floating through the cytosol, and then these calcium ions are going to be pumped into the smooth ER. They're going to be pumped into the smooth ER, like this. And there will be a buildup of the calcium ions in muscle cells. Then what will end up happening is that eventually you get this huge buildup of calcium ions within the smooth ER, and then suddenly there's an outflow of the calcium ions back into the cytosol. Let me use a different color to show you that. There's an outflow back of calcium ions back into the cytosol. So what will happen is, since that there's a huge outflow of calcium ions, outflow of calcium ions from the smooth ER into the cytosol, this is going to trigger muscle contraction. Okay, so that's basically how your muscle cells contract, by this outflow of the calcium ions out of the smooth ER. Pretty interesting. Sometimes this outflow of calcium ions can actually do other things, like it can make the cell do other things, which we will be talking about later when we talk about cell communication, which is basically how the cell actually uses things like calcium ions in order to make the cell do different things, which we'll be talking about later in the unit, but just keep that in the back of your head. Okay, in the next video, this video is getting kind of long, so in the next video I'm going to go ahead and talk about the rest of the endomembrane system, so stay tuned. The endomembrane system is as simple as that.